What's up, people? Welcome to my show where I bring in different people from different career fields to showcase their talents and specialties to the world. Today, I have with me Calvin Trice. He's a phenomenal person, a talented basketball player, and he takes pride in his work as a basketball coach, both for Coach Smith at Bevwood and he has his own private training basketball sessions as well. So come on up, Calvin. Thank you for being here, Calvin.
Hey, thank you for having me, Amado. I'm excited to be here. Good to see you, Chief.
Good to see you too. How's everything?
Everything is wonderful. We're in the new year now, so it's time to take things to the next level in this new year.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And speaking of that, how was Christmas? How was New Year's?
Christmas and New Year, starting with Christmas. So I do a lot of things during the year, 7 days a week, sun up to sundown, and Christmas is the time where I get to go get some rest, recharge my battery, write up some New Year's resolutions. Then when the New Year's comes, we execute those resolutions. So that's where I'm at now.
It's great to hear. And speaking of the New Year, what are what are your top New Year's resolutions?
Top New Year's resolutions. Well, one of my hobbies is working out. So I always like to take my workouts to the next level. Whenever I feel like I've plateaued, I want to take that to the next level with my exercises. Just eating healthy, uh, keeping my mind sharper and more focused, getting rid of distractions so I can get more things done. Um, so yeah, that's basically what I like to take into the new year. Just being a better version of myself than I was last year.
Yeah, that's always the goal. And even within a new year, that's just something you're working on every day. Just being the better version of yourself while at the same time you are going to make mistakes and you're still a work in progress.
Every single day, you always try to be better than the day you were yesterday. And then when you make mistakes, those are learning lessons.
Yeah.
So always, I embrace those mistakes as long as you're not making mistakes because you're being um, doing things on purpose, not giving your best effort. Those are when the mistakes happen that you don't want. But if you're doing your best and mistakes happen, those are lessons that you can learn from.
Yeah. Amen to that. And my second question that I have for you is to take me back to the very beginning when you were a kid. Where are you
Mm.
from and what was life like growing up?
Uh, Totally different than it is now. I'm an '80s baby,
Hmm.
and so I grew up in Southern California, LA County. Moved around a few times from South Central, Inglewood. I went to school right across the street from the Forum, where the Lakers played during the Showtime era. Um, so that's where I'm at right now in terms of my childhood. Oh my goodness, it was just a complete night and day from today. No internet, obviously.
Yeah.
So a lot of us played outside. We rode our bikes. Those are how I learned a lot of my lessons, going outside and socializing with a lot of the kids in the neighborhood. Just learning how to navigate through certain situations. I don't see that today as much. So I would say that's the biggest difference between how I grew up and today's generation. It's not a knock on today's generation because, believe I wish I had a lot of the technology that's out now.
Mhm.
Wish I could look up something on Google and get the answer right away. But that's the biggest difference was just being able to grow up and go outside and have to be creative with some of the things that you wanted to do to keep yourself from being bored.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. One of the things that I wish we had today that we'd that you had when you were in the 80s is because of that technology, you had to find something to do. So you went outside and you would play games, you would work out. But I feel like because of the increase in technology, I feel like obesity has gone up
Mm,
because people are sitting in the house too much
mm,
and that's not good for you.
yeah, agree. I agree with that as well. And Also, the fast food places that popped up all over the place
Yeah.
with kids eating McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and being able to order Postmates and things like that, that doesn't help at all. But if you can offset that by getting into an activity, something you like, whether it's even if it's hockey, water polo,
Yeah.
something to keep you busy, something to keep you active, I think you can offset a lot of things that can set you back in today's time.
Yeah, and it's really just finding a balance between the your technology time and taking the time to work out and just put some effort into your body for you.
Balance is key.
Balance is key. And now that we talked about your childhood, let's go into high school. So,
Hmm.
if I were to meet you in high school, what was your personality like?
Ooh, wee. My personality in high school, quite honestly, I was a shell of myself in high school. Had a lot of issues in middle school.
Uh,
So when I got to high school, when I was in middle school, I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then got into some situations with some of the students who didn't like the bright-eyed bushy-tailed kid, and I drew a lot of attention to myself in middle school because of that. So by the time I got to high school, unwanted attention, I will say, some good attention, but some unwanted attention. So by the time I got into high school, I put the shell on and my personality went down and basically just went through the motions in high school. I didn't do the things that looking back, I wish I could have did a lot more in my high school days, like things like this, having your own show. Um, but that wasn't my calling. So a lot of those things I learned from, and I was able to apply it in my adult life for the mistakes that I made as life lessons. You learn from those things, and you see how you can adapt and make things better for yourself. So, yeah, my high school experience was just a big learning lesson of what not to do.
yeah, I feel like that's what it's all about. And I feel like, regardless of what happened, you shouldn't look back on regret because I feel like if you didn't have those circumstances, you wouldn't be in the place that you are now.
Oh, absolutely.
So I feel like it's actually a positive thing. Like you flip that switch, and it's
Mhm.
actually
Mhm.
something positive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's good for you, and I feel like that's what high school is all about. They say high school is the best time of your lives, but I feel like it's more of a learning experience for the stuff not to do
Yeah.
because you're preparing to become a young adult for when you go
Mhm.
to college,
Mhm.
and you have a lot more responsibilities. But I feel like I feel like college can be a lot more fun because you've learned hopefully you've learned the bad stuff in high school, and that's what's going to help you in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then your basketball career. So even though you were that shellfish kid in high school, take me through basketball. When did you start it, and all the way through high school?
I started playing. I was always an active kid, from 3, 4, 5 years old, just running around. My dad played. He was a three-sport athlete: baseball, football, basketball. So when he would take me up to his baseball games, I would run around the bases, sliding in the dirt, as far as I can remember. Then when I got into second grade, I went to a new school. The school I was at in first grade, they played kickball and tetherball. No one played basketball. Went to a new school in second grade in Inglewood, City of Champions, and all the kids were playing basketball. And it just felt like I floated to the court. And the first time I was terrible, but because I could run, jump, and I was fast, it was fun, even though I missed every shot. But the first time I made a shot, it was like fireworks went off. And I went home and told my dad, I said, Dad, I want to be in the NBA. I said, Dad, I want to be in the NBA. And ever since then, I was on a mission to be the greatest basketball player that I could be.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you're and then as you continued working on your game all the way into middle school and high school, well, I mean, did you do any leagues like AAU, anything
Absolutely.
like that?
Well, when I was younger, AAU wasn't a thing. We were still playing for recreational leagues. YMCA's, your local park would have a league, sort of like BHBL. We had our version of BHBL in Inglewood, and of course I played for those teams growing up. Made a nice little name for myself in elementary and middle school, And then got to high school, became a shell, and lost my confidence. As great as I was in high school, I was one of the best players in school. But because I lost my confidence, I ended up not playing for my high school team, didn't even try out. And I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of kids. I tell a lot of people this who are from that time. The best basketball players at my school were not on the basketball team.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a lot of us. It was a few of us, 5, 10, 15 of us that were really good, better than the basketball players on the basketball team. But for one reason or the other, we weren't on the team. But I checked into a new school when I moved to the city of Hawthorne. And so I ended up going to Hawthorne High School, and I met a young man who lived in my apartment building, and we ended up becoming really close friends. And he saw how good I was at basketball, and he basically pulled me by my shirt collar and introduced me to his coach. And I ended up playing my junior and senior season at Hawthorne High School. So I got a little basketball experience, a little too late to get college coaches to pay attention to me, but I am grateful for that small experience of playing high school basketball. I'm grateful for the friend that I met who pulled me by my shirt and told me to go get on that team. And it was actually the high school coach at Hawthorne High School was my recreational coach in Inglewood.
Wow.
When he saw me, he said, "I know you from somewhere." And I said, "Oh, that's the coach I had." So it was all full circle. It was all meant to be, and it was a really great experience. Grateful for that. And I ended up going to trying out for Harbor City College, and that was a great experience. I played well, but it was 75 guys in the gym, and the coach chose the guys that he had better relationships with. Understandable. He didn't really know me. I had got another friend to tell me to just come up. So I played a few games, but when they made the final cuts, I wasn't a part of that final cut. So that's when my college experience stopped right there.
Oh. So is that why so you're saying that you chose not to go to college because of that?
Not necessarily. I wasn't the best student. I didn't have the greatest experience sitting in the classroom. And so when the thought of going to college, if I couldn't play basketball, I didn't want to be in school. I didn't want to be in the classroom. I was still very immature minded at that time in terms of sitting in the classroom and reading books and studying. I couldn't do it at that time. So college, it wasn't something that was on my radar if I couldn't play basketball.
And, even though you didn't go to college, you talked about, like, you shared your basketball experience even junior year and senior year, but even with that little amount of time, even when you were younger, did you get any awards? Because, high schools, whatever sport you play for, they have banquets, and they'll give out awards, not to everyone, but to the best players.
No awards necessarily, but I have moments where there was a young man who played for Westchester High. He ended up going to the NBA. I'm not sure if his name is Brandon something. And when we played him in high school, I shut him down so bad he went to the bench and cried like a baby. Coaches got mad at him. I was known as a defender, so I would guard him. And I remember just stealing the ball from him, laying it up. Next thing you know, he's on the bench crying his eyes out. And I had another moment where there was this guy who was who was going to play for Washington, Division I school. Everybody had their eyes on him as soon as he walked in the gym. We are lined up to play this team. This was LA High. And everybody's like, "Kelvin, you have to guard him. He's the best player. You have to guard him." So I guarded him. He was about 6'5", small forward. I'm 6 foot, 140 pounds, soaking wet. And but we ended up going into overtime, winning the game. Our team sucked. We weren't a good team. Their team was a very good team. and we ended up stealing the game because I shut down the best player who was going to play for Washington the next year. Shut him down. He couldn't get any baskets off of me. So those little things like that, shutting down the player that ended up going to the NBA, shutting down the player that ended up going to Division I, those are the things that I kind of put a feather in my cap for. No awards necessarily, but things like that is what let me know that I wasn't too bad myself.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. You know, I mean, you don't always have to get like a physical award, but it's all about what you do and what kind of little legacy you make of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a good lesson. And because you chose not to go to college, what did you end up doing after you graduated high school?
After graduation, I had a high school sweetheart. So we ended up getting married and having 3 kids right away, right out of high school. So I went right into the job force. I did a bunch of odd jobs until I landed in a more secure job that I actually liked. It was as a warehouse at CVS, formerly known as Savons. It was Savons when I started, turned into CVS. And there is when things started to click for me, and that potential that I had in high school, it started to grow in my chest, and I knew that I was underachieving, and I didn't like the feeling of underachieving. And so that's when I started to go home and get back to the drawing board and look myself in the mirror and say, "Kay, do you want to work at CVS or any of these other jobs that look like trash to you? No disrespect to anybody else that works those jobs. You do what you have to do to put food on the table." But it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me, and I felt a burning desire to reach that potential that I wasn't able to tap into when I was younger. And so from there it was, okay, so what are you good at? What do you want to do? And I had to really have some self-conversations with myself. And I would think about coaching. You're good at basketball. You want to be a coach? And I was like, nah. I'm talking myself out of it. Nah, you can't be. Nah. And so I stopped doubting myself and ended up taking a leap of faith. And I would say by the time this happened at 27. This happened at 27. By the time I was 29, that's when I started to execute some of the things that was going on in my head that I wanted to become. And finally took that leap of faith. By 30, I was doing basketball camps, and I don't know if I don't know if that's in your questions. We'll get into that. But by the time I was 30, I was starting the journey that led me to where I am here now at 43. Been doing this for 12 years now.
Wow. And you said 30 when you were doing those basketball camps. So how did usually you have to know someone in order to get a job position like that, unless you're able to create that business. So how did you get into that position?
I knew no one.
Wow.
Knew no one. But I did have a process. I had a process where I would wake up early in the morning. I would go on Craigslist. You ever heard of Craigslist?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It was Craigslist before social media. Craigslist was like the ads, the want ads. That's how you found a job. Before Indeed app and a lot of the other apps where you look for a job, you go on Craigslist to look for a job. So I would search up anybody who was looking to hire a coach, anything to do with basketball. Somebody that you need me to put the tape on the ground for the basketball court. Anything that had anything to do with basketball, sports, coaching, youth, kids. I would apply on those ads off Craigslist. Nobody called me back. Nobody replied to me. One person replied to me, and his name was Coach Bill Smith.
Whoa.
Coach Bill Smith called me back. I remember it like it was yesterday. Pulled out my phone, saw a 310 number, and I said, "Hey, that's funny, a 310 number." Answered it, and it was Coach Bill Smith on the other line, and he asked me to come in for an interview, and I butchered the interview, and he turned me down. He turned me down. But he said, listen, if you're really serious about this, give me a call in about 3 months. Maybe I might have something else for you. So I called him and I counted every day. I scratched, like I'm scratching the days off the calendar. 90 days. I counted the days off. And I called him after 3 months. I called him again. He said, who? I said, Coach, this is Kelvin Trice. Who? I said, oh my God, he doesn't even remember me. Oh my goodness gracious. So I reminded him who I was, and you told me to call you back in 3 months. He said, oh, I did? Oh, well, come on down. I'll interview you again. I took this interview very serious. I put on a suit, took it prepared with my notes and everything, and so he interviewed me. I got the job, and he was a PE teacher at El Rodeo Middle School, not too far from here. And it was just camp stuff, doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, after school camps. That was it. He had an assistant PE instructor. I don't know if he wants me to say his name. His name is Coach Keith Davis. He's a good guy. Love Coach Keith Davis. I think he's at BV. But he was the manager at the time. And him and Coach Smith started to butt heads because Coach Keith had in his own right, was looking to branch out and do his own thing. So they started to butt heads, even though Coach Keith was managing Coach Smith businesses. Once they butted heads, after about a month of me being there, he asked me to replace Coach Keith as his manager. And so I started managing Bill Smith's camps and all his other ventures, and that's when I became basically his understudy. He would call me into El Rodeo Monday through Friday. I was basically working at El Rodeo, but under Coach Smith's tutelage, and that's when I was able to soak in. I said, this man has a library. You got to bring him in for an interview, by the way. This man has a library of knowledge. I felt like the gods had bestowed upon me everything that I had ever needed. How can I meet this man that has so much information? I knew no one. And I meet this gentleman who has an array of basketball knowledge. He has basketball knowledge oozing out of his pores. And I'm sitting next to him every day taking it in. And I just felt like the luckiest person in the world. It really made up for everything that I missed out on in high school, in college. I'm getting it all now in my 30s, being under Coach Bill Smith. It was the story of that one day I'm going to definitely tell in my own way in a long form for sure.
Yeah, and for the viewers, I do need to share my own story about how I did meet Coach Smith and how I eventually met Kelvin. So, I mean, I was just at home my freshman year on a sick day. I was just on my iPad. I was just resting in bed, and somehow I found an old article about how in 2015 him and the other teachers in this district were retiring, and it talked about his story about how he started out in the 80s in El Rodeo. Him and some other teachers were about to lose their jobs due to budget cuts, and the students weren't okay with it. So at that time, Angie Voigt, known as Angelina Jolie now, her and four other kids, they protested for Coach Smith for the district to hire him back because they just enjoyed him as a coach and as a person. So it all worked out. He ended up staying in district until 2015, and that's the main story to Bevwood. SOS, Save Our Smith. And at the urging of the students and the parents, they wanted him to create a basketball camp, and that's where he created Bevwood, and he's been running the program since 1994, I believe, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And it was over the summer. I was doing a water polo camp, and he was having the camp at the high school, here at the high school, and I recognized him, and I said, you're the guy I read about you, I read about your story. You were the kids, they loved you, they protested for you, and it really made his day. And he saw the potential that I had in me as a young man. And then I saw him again with Robbie Curtis, his assistant, and he was like, here's my card. It'd be a privilege if you could come and volunteer here. So I was interested. It was the last 2 weeks of the camp, but I volunteered. I had so much fun. Just learning some things from him and just being there. And I was gonna work with him last summer, but unfortunately some stuff came up, personal issues, so I couldn't work for him. But if those personal issues didn't come up, then it would have been a privilege and an honor working for him and with Kelvin.
Funny story. Um, Whenever we would bring in new hires to come and help us work the camps, he would have an orientation for the new hires, and he would make them sit in front of the TV and watch the old tape of SOS.
Wow.
So when you come work for Coach Smith, you need to know who you're working for and what his legacy is. So sit down, watch this 10-minute clip that came on Current Affair in 19 whatever it was, and so you can know who Coach Smith was. So yeah, and I've seen it a bunch of times. It's a really cool story.
But yeah, it's interesting. I guess, I mean, I don't know what he was thinking, but because I knew the story, maybe he was thinking I don't need to show this to him.
He was impressed. He was definitely impressed with your knowledge of knowing who he was for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so, with that relationship that, luckily meeting him and now working for him, how long have you been working for him? So you said you've been working for him since you were 30, so, doing the math, not off the top of my head, but like how many years has that been?
Oof. I'm 43 now, so I'm 13.
Wow.
About 13 years, yeah.
Wow. And what's the best thing what has been the greatest thing working for Bevwood? Like from the staff to the kids, like everything.
Well, I'm not the only coach that has been mentored by Coach Smith. He has a whole tree of coaches that have come up under him. So being able to meet those guys from Coach Donald Smith, from Coach Craig. We have a bunch of coaches. Oh my God, if I'm forgetting their names, please forgive me. Coach Flavor, Ronnie Winbush. I cannot forget Coach Flavor. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm drawing a blank, but there's a bunch of coaches that have come up under us, and we're all like a very strong unit. We're all friends. They can call me. I'll come over, and we hang out. And really good guys. Really good guy. Like I told you, I knew no one. Now I feel like I'm a part of a family.
Yeah.
Of coaches. And so that's one, aside from the wealth of knowledge that I learned from Coach Smith, being able to meet the other guys that he's taught, being able to take, because he's not just a great coach, he's a great businessman, being able to take how he grew his businesses, and now I'm able to take and run my own businesses as well, because he retired in 2015 and moved to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So I've been on my own, doing my own thing since 2015, and I had to learn how to sink or swim. And but obviously I'm here, been swimming ever since, pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
And besides Bevwood, take me into your career now, and especially learning from him, like how you the private training sessions that you've now started for other kids to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, outside of the private training that I do, I'm also a physical education instructor myself for Warner Avenue Elementary. I've done PE for private schools in the past. I've been an athletic director of a high school, small high school. I coach 4 basketball teams for the West Side Premier League, which takes a huge toll on me. But just taking all of those things that I've learned and bringing that into whether it's private training, whether it's PE, whether it's coaching a travel team, all of those things are something that I've learned in my journey, and I'm able to spread those things around to just different aspects of what I like to do with my career.
Yeah, and yeah, that's great, man. And oh yeah, and then now let's go back into, let's talk about your private life now.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you've had a high school sweetheart, and you
Mm.
guys, how long have you guys been married now?
Been married, officially married since, oh, she's gonna kill me for this. 2007.
Wow.
Officially married since 2007. We met in 1994. Started dating in 1997. So we've been together as a couple since 1997. We were friends for 3, 4 years before that, and still together to this day with 3 children that we have. I have an old daughter. She's 22. I have a second daughter she'll be turning 18, and then my youngest son is 16.
And what has been the best thing about having kids and being a father?
The best thing is taking some of the mistakes that you made or that were made as when you were a child, and being able, or not just mistakes, I don't want to make it seem like mistakes because my childhood was great, but you want to take some of the things that occurred in your childhood and make them better for your children.
Yeah.
I think that's what all kids do, is they want to upgrade from the way they were raised by their parents. No matter how bad or how good, you always want to take some of the things that happened in your childhood and make things better. So that's been the great thing, is just being able to raise my kids the best way that I see fit, and just seeing them grow and seeing their personalities and things like that. It's not always easy. It's not easy at all, but nothing is easy that's worth it.
Mhm.
So
And then the downside of being a parent. I mean, I do want to be honest about something that I've heard. Not saying this is your circumstance,
I
but
think I know where you're going.
yeah, the I've heard about this Harvard study about how being a parent has, like they say the American dream is to get married, to have kids, to have a good job, to have a house, but that's not what everyone wants. And being a parent can actually make you unhappy sometimes. I'm
Mm.
not saying that's your circumstance, but well, really, I'm wondering what the downside is to being a parent, and if you don't mind me asking, if you've ever experienced any unhappiness being a parent.
Of course, but being a parent and being a husband is not about my happiness. It's about doing what's right.
Yeah.
You might not be happy on the basketball team you play for or whatever sport you're in, but you do your best no matter what. And so, yeah, there's been some down times, but you don't get too down. You still put your best foot forward. And next thing you know, good things are happening. There's always ups, there's downs, there's ebbs, there's flows, but you stay grounded through it all. You stay grounded through it all, and you see things are not as bad as you thought they were when you were on the downswing. Um, so yeah, no regrets. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It definitely allowed me to get focused. If I didn't have kid, had my first kid when I was 21. So I don't think if I would have had a kid at that age, I wouldn't have got immediately focused as I needed to be. Having a kid changed my whole mentality, and I knew I had to be focused, and I had to get away from some of the distractions that a lot of my friends at that time were caught up in.
Yeah, and then you're, you being married. I'm interested because I will get to your age eventually. This
Hmm.
high school is the time now, so marriage. What has been the best thing about marriage?
The best thing, ooh, she gonna get me for this one too. Oh goodness. The best thing about being married is having a partner, having somebody to watch your kids grow up with. Whenever the kids have one of those great moments, you have somebody that you can share it with. My wife is basically my best friend, and because we've known each other so long, we can pull back from memories from middle school. We went to the same high school as well. One of the funniest things is when I bring up one of the funniest teachers that was at the high school. And I'm not going to do an impression of her right now, but I do an impression of one of our high school teachers, and she gets tickled. So she's just like my friend. She's my partner. She's my business partner. She's my family partner. And that's the best thing about having somebody in house that I can share those things with. We share a history. We have a lot in common, even while being opposite, because she's completely not into sports at all. So we're opposite, but we also, because we're opposite, we fit so well together. So yeah, just I think I got lucky. I got lucky. Yeah, because I don't see a lot of people who have that situation as well. So I definitely count my blessings that I had somebody that I was able to grow with, make mistakes, and learn from my mistakes and continue to do better.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, divorce rates are so high now, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't know. I feel like it's a combination of some people just not really wanting that marriage, and I mean, I don't honestly, I don't really know why divorce rates are so high, but I always find it surprising and am astonished to hear when someone like you has been married for a long time and
Mm-hmm.
is continuing with that marriage. So how do you continue and stay up with that marriage, stay up to date?
Ooh wee. It's bigger than me. Like I say, if I get unhappy, so what? Push through it, and then when I push through it, it goes away. It's not as bad as you think it is. Um, so that's it's not about. It's bigger than me. This is about family. This is about building an empire, and it's not about um, menial arguments. I'm right. You're wrong. You're wrong, I'm right. Fighting over little things. It's bigger than that. We're doing something that is bigger than the both of us. And because I understand that, I don't take anything personal, whether she does something wrong in my eyes, or whether I do something wrong in her eyes. It's not personal. We make mistakes, we move on, and we continue to grow. So no, we don't stop the ship over anything that's just because we're having a bad day or a bad month or a bad year. I believe Michelle Obama talked about that. She
Oh,
said she had about 10 bad years while she was with Barack Obama, but she said it's not about her and her unhappiness. They're trying to do something bigger than that. So I appreciated that quote as someone who has been married and raising kids as well. It's not about you. It's about the greater whole. So I think if more people understood that, it's not about your selfish needs. It's about everybody coming together and working through things, whether it's bad things, good things, or indifferent.
yeah, I feel like some people that's because really that's really your ego, like trying that's just trying to eat you up and be like, I'm right, and like just trying to make you selfish.
Yeah, yeah,
So just don't let that ego get
yeah,
to you,
yeah, yeah.
because when two people are butting heads with an ego,
Mm,
it's all about, who's right or who's wrong, and you
hmm.
can't solve a problem like that.
And that happens in team sports.
Exactly.
Players butt heads, they're arguing, and what happens when you get caught up too much into that? We lose the game. So if we can put our ego aside and just do the best that we can, whether you think your teammate is right or wrong, let's come together and do the best we can. We can work on those things in practice. We don't need to argue right now. Let's get this job done. I take those things because I was really great at that in basketball, bringing everybody together. Whether we're arguing, whether we're down, we're losing, we're upset. I was able to bring everybody together on my teams, and so I just applied that into marriage. It's not about taking things personal. It's about getting things done.
That's and that brings me back to my next question. So, what do you what do you hope to instill both in your kids, like in your family life, and your basketball kids who you coach? What's the most important thing you hope to instill in them?
Confidence, believing in yourself. I think when it comes to kids, well, let's start with my kids. When it comes to my kids, I just want them to believe in themselves, know that they're great, that they can accomplish anything they put their mind to, with effort, intention. Um, when it comes to the kids that I work with, because I work with young kids, and I spoke about what I went through in middle school
Mm-hmm.
and how that affected me going into high school.
Yeah.
So I understand how huge confidence is. I would read books from celebrities. One book I read, it was Snoop Dogg's book. Snoop Dogg, he had a book in the early 2000s, and the rapper Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
And he was a great rapper in high school, and he had this rhyme book with all of his rap rhymes in there, and all of his friends saying, you're going to be great. You're so good. You're really good at rapping. He didn't believe in himself. He threw his rhyme book in the trash. Boop. I'm not good. Boop. Put that rhyme book in the trash. His best friend, Warren G, another rapper, pulled his rhyme book out the trash can and kept it for himself, and ended up pushing Snoop Dogg into becoming a rapper who Snoop didn't even believe in himself. And I said, oh my gosh, that was me. Here I am, this great basketball player, well known. Everybody knows how good I am. I know how good I am. And I still didn't even have the confidence to try out for the school team. So that confidence. Another name, Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, one of the greatest basketball players we've ever seen. He loses his confidence because he's scared to shoot, and he's basically out of the league by his 6th or 7th year. Great prospect of a basketball player. Loses his confidence, out of the league. On the flip side, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
Great basketball player, physical specimen. Not the best shooter. Can't really shoot the three. But he didn't lose confidence. He said, I know I can't shoot threes, but I'm still going to shoot them anyway because I believe in myself. And what does he do? He goes on to win MVP, championship. It's like the polar opposite of Ben Simmons. And what's the key ingredient between them two? What's the difference between them two? Confidence. So back to what I do with the youth is, it's not about basketball with them. Yes, I'm teaching them basketball, but I'm using basketball to teach life lessons, to instill confidence, to instill self-belief. I believe that's why my business has grown the way it is, because parents see that aspect of what I bring to their kids, because I don't train the best kids physically. I train the kids that are not that good, that are not that gifted, and I uplift them and I teach them how to believe in themselves. And if they see themselves get a little bit big, a little bit better, a little bit of improvement, their confidence starts to grow. Their self-esteem starts to grow. And then I let them know that, okay, you're not doing this to go into the NBA, but you can apply this process to anything you want to do. As long as you believe in yourself, you walk the right path, you work hard at it, you stay persistent at it, you stay resilient, you can accomplish anything.
Wow, and sorry we have to cut it short, but I feel like that's a good way to end. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show. It's been a pleasure hearing your wisdom, your advice, and just the person that you are. It's just been an honor and a privilege. So I thank you, man.
Thank you for inviting me on. You're the perfect person to sit across from and get this interview off. This is actually one of the, I've told this story a couple times, but never in depth like this. This is the first time I've ever gotten everything out in this way before. So I appreciate this. This is a historic moment for me.
Of course. And again, here we are at my show where I bring in different people from different career fields to showcase their talents and specialties to the world. That's
Signing
it.
out.
Yeah.
Peace. Amado, that was great.